Hey, good morning. Hare Krishna. I'm overjoyed to be here on a New Year's Eve, the last day of the year, and I was just reflecting. We start off reading Bhagavatam, we end reading Bhagavatam, and what else is there to do with our time? That brings us this much joy, and that brings us together. So I'm really happy. Yeah, a whole journey around the sun, right? That's what we did. We traveled around the sun with Krishna. Okay, so let's continue with this verse today. So summary of someone asked for a summary of the entire Bhagavatam for the year. Krishna is the center of everything. He loves us, we love him. Now we can all go home. But for today, we're going to read this text 13. Okay, I'll share the screen so that you can see it. Okay, so 10:47:13. Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvisesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. We are in a very dramatic recount of what's happening here with the Radharani, with the gopis. And so for the sake of time, you all know I love the Sanskrit. For the sake of time, I'll just get into the English translation and the short purport, and then we'll see what this is. We'll try to understand what this is saying. Translation. After making us drink the enchanting nectar of his lips only once, Krishna suddenly abandoned us, just as you might quickly abandon some flowers. How is it, then, that the goddess Padma willingly serves his lotus feet? Alas, the answer must certainly be that her mind has been stolen away by his deceitful words. Purport. In this verse, Srimati Radharani continues to compare Sri Krishna to the bumblebee, and in her distress, she states that the reason the goddess of fortune is constantly devoted to his lotus feet must be that she has been fooled by Krishna's promises. According to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti, the statement of Srimati Radharani's illustrates Parijalpa, as described in Sri Ujjwala Nilamani. 14:184. Prabor Nidayata Satya Chapalya di Upadanat Swavicha Vichakshanata Vyaktir Pangya Syat Parijalpitam. Parijalpa is that speech which through various devices shows one's own cleverness by exposing the mercilessness, duplicity, unreliability, and so on of one's lord. Yeah, this type of speech. Well, this is the first thing that I picked up on this types of speech, and when we look up the different kinds of jalpas speaking, there are no English translations for those words. They aren't there, and it's very interesting that even forms of speech are being categorized, and we can understand what they are and how they present. I found that really fascinating. Outside of this philosophy, I never came across that. And it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It just means that I never came across it. We're not taught these things. And so how we're speaking, how we're expressing ourselves can be categorized. And what does that mean? It just points to perhaps our state of mind, our consciousness, our emotional state, but we don't think about it in those terms. And I wonder if the understanding of how we're speaking or how someone else is speaking, how something is being expressed, would help us in understanding our own psyche, our own states at any present moment. And then we can have, because we're understanding categorically what the mind is doing, because our speech is coming from, the mind and the intelligence. But if we can understand categorically how we're using speech, we can understand what the mind and the emotions are going through in any given moment. And perhaps we wouldn't have so much of a difficult time, with the struggle of the mind, of it trying to control us trying to control it. And there's just this back and forth. That was just a practical thing that I thought about. On the other hand, I thought, well, what is Radharani's emotional state right now? Where is her mind? Because she saw this bumblebee and she thought, oh, this must be the messenger of Krishna. And so because this bumblebee was sent by Krishna, then I can tell him all the things that I want him to hear, because he's not here for me to say. It's a reproach, right? She's reproaching him. She's saying, she thinks this bumblebee is Krishna, and she's saying, she's just speaking about how awful Krishna is, but she's speaking from the point of a lover who's devastated in his absence. And so her mind is trying to make sense of it. She says it must be that he's just a scoundrel, basically, that he was with us here, and then we got attached to him. He, after making us drink the enchanting nectar of his lips only once, Krishna suddenly abandoned us. So he was here, he had his fun, he enjoyed, and then he left. And so the mind of a lover suffering is trying to make sense of it. And how is it that the goddess of fortune serves him? Well, it must be because she's confused, and he has what's the word? Sort of, he's fooled her too. It must be because he's such a rascal. This is basically how she's expressing herself. But what's really happening is that she's suffering. She's in distress, and commentators and other acharyas have said that it is Krishna as the bumblebee who's there to see her. And so she's expressing in this way, hoping that it'll get back to him and he can understand she just wants him to know that she's distressed in this way. So she's experiencing these very strong emotions. She's disappointed that her lover was there and now he's not. She's depressed, probably lonely, miserable. What else? Angry. She's angry. She's annoyed at him, probably a little bit lost, so she's in a mental agitation. And so how interesting is this, that here we have the highest of living entities, of pure devotees, of associates of Krishna, and she's experiencing things that we also experience. We experience distress, we experience disappointment and loneliness and heartbreak and anger. But the difference is that she's experiencing this in the context of Krishna not being there. And how much of these emotions and mental distresses do I experience, and they're not about Krishna? And that's okay. That's where we are. We're not comparing ourselves to Srimati Radharani or any pure devotees, but it's important to know where we are, because I think that there is something there. There's something telling there about these emotions, about these experiences in and of themselves. And I wonder if this is the example that is being, one of the examples that's being given to us in the Srimad Bhagavatam. We see all of the range of human emotions is there, even within the pure devotees. And so is it that the emotions, the distress, the suffering in and of itself is not unnatural, is not bad per se, but what happens is that it's misdirected. It has nothing to do with Krishna when I'm, suffering, and at some core level, perhaps it does. We hear this. There's the phrase that Raghunath uses often. It's a God-shaped hole in your heart. And so if that's ultimately what I'm missing, what I'm needing, that I'm separated from my source, that I'm not in relationship with the one person that can bring me all fulfillment, all satisfaction, all joy, then I'm experiencing that. And perhaps the illusion is not to experience those things, but to think that the cause of those unfulfilled needs or the distresses, to think that the cause of that is anything other than Krishna. So that's a thought there, because that, Krishna, we have a relationship with him. To what degree we're aware of that relationship is what we call whether we have advancement or less advancement in spiritual life. It's a matter of awareness. It's a matter of consciousness, not so much. And then what we do or don't do comes from that understanding, from that realization. And so that's when it becomes a process. And Krishna doesn't need anything outside of himself. Like we don't need anything outside of ourselves except that which is intrinsic to us. And one could argue that Krishna doesn't need anything except that which is intrinsic to him. And so this is why he spends his time in pastimes with his devotees all over the universes, in many worlds, time after time, eternally, just pastime after pastime, because of the need to experience rasa, to experience relationship and the emotions that come with that relationship. And so, sure, we don't need anything except that which is intrinsic to us. So we are inseparable. So we're intrinsic. And he says to Arjuna, never was there a time when I, nor you, nor all of these kings did not exist. To me, that says we're intrinsic. If whenever there was no point when Krishna came into being, but there was also no point whenever that we ever came into being, and we've always been together, and so we're intrinsic to one another, except he's bigger, he carries the whole thing. We carry Krishna inside of us in a different way through Super Soul, through Paramatma. And so I found this very, very interesting, because we have an internal life with Krishna that's intimate, that's private, that's fulfilling. It's like the relationship with a lover that Radharani's distressed about. But this goes beyond that, because it's not subject to change. That you can't unlink them. You can't unlink the soul from Krishna. You can't break that relationship. And we can take comfort in this, because in this world, for whatever the reason is, we come together momentarily, sort of like waves meeting the shore for a moment, and then they're pulled back again. And sometimes, and relationships in this world are like that. We come together for a moment and then we get pulled apart, and that's just the nature of it. Except that doesn't happen with Krishna. We can never be pulled apart. We can turn away and maybe get distracted by something else, but he doesn't ever get distracted from us. We may get distracted, but we're never separated. We are actually inseparable. And so the difference between us and a pure devotee is not that they don't desire. It's not that they don't have suffering. It's just that it's all in relationship to Krishna. And so when we're moving into a new year, into a new time, a new day, a new week, a new month, a new moment, we can think about these things. And one thing I was reflecting on was about, okay, there's a frustration. I haven't found Krishna. I know that, yes, rationally, I know all of this, everything is made up of his energy. There's no escaping him. There isn't a place that I can look where he's not there. And that's everything, even the things that we would rather not see, but they're not excluded. And I thought, how frustrating is this? You know, sort of like Radharani's like, she's in a mode of, she's kind of angry right now. She's kind of like, as if she had nothing to do with it. You know, she's like, it's all his fault. He did this. She's, you know, it's this really sweet, sort of spurned lover kind of attitude, but it's in the highest sense. But there is a frustration for us. You know, we're always seeking this, moving towards our desires, moving towards wanting to experience rasa, wanting to experience joy. Um, Although rasa has many, many flavors, we kind of tend to go towards the ones that are pleasurable, but not always. But we do move towards those things. And so, okay, I don't have this. That we can feel this sense of something lacking, something's missing, especially if we have everything that we think we need and everything that we think that the joy and the satisfaction is embedded in. And then we get it and we're like, oh yeah, that's kind of, that wasn't as satisfying as I thought. Or it was satisfying and then naturally, like we talked about like I said, the waves come crashing onto the shore for just a moment. This very satisfying situation, relationship, thing, uh, job, whatever it is, um, it goes. Something changes. Where everything's subject to change here. And so frustrated, um, because we don't have the thing that's ultimately going to fulfill us. So we have an option here. Am I going to be frustrated because I haven't found that thing? Or am I going to focus on actually wanting to even look for that thing? So the idea I was thinking is not so much about finding Krishna per se. And that is there. It's only a matter of time before we do. There is no, you know, it's we just like Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada said, in one moment you become Krishna conscious. Just a moment. And then we realized that we always have been, and we just momentarily got distracted. But the important thing, at least where we are now in this world, that's there is a description of it in the Bhagavad Gita, and Srila Prabhupada said in the purport, it's a transient world of suffering. Just it's transient. It just there's so much change, and that's really what brings us a lot of the suffering is the changes. You know, we're happy one day and then something happens and you know it's all down the drain. But what if we focus on not so much on finding Krishna, but learning to look for him? Because I may not find him, and I speak for myself, I may not find him this go around. But what's more important than finding him is actually learning to look for him and yearning to look for him. Because then I will carry that desire, that looking, that searching. I will carry that with me after this situation is completed, after this life is gone. So I may not find him here right now, but if I can learn to look for him everywhere and learn to desire that and have so it's not about getting rid of desires, it's about desiring the appropriate thing for myself. And so there's nothing wrong with our desires except that they're kind of like desires gone bad. They're just, you know, directed at things that are transient, that are not fulfilling. They're not filling that Krishna shaped hole in my heart. And so this is the prayer. This is the prayer of, you know, this is the instruction of our acharyas. You know, I think let's see, Sachinanda Maharaj speaks about this a lot. You know, you pray to Krishna, pray to want Krishna. If you don't want him, pray to want him. If you don't want to pray, pray to want him. You know, it's just this, it's about appropriate desires. And so our desires, just like, you know, Radharani is having her moment of distress, they're telling, our distress is telling that our distress is a doorway to something, to why do I want this? Why am I distressed? Why am I unhappy? So there are friends, they're actually telling us, hey, something's wrong. It's like, wake up, something's not right. And then you can look, well, okay, why am I distressed? Because I'm not getting what I want. What is it that I want? Do I really want this? Do I really want to want this? Maybe I should want to want something else. And that's the seeking, that's the searching. It's trying to turn the ship around and direct it in a different direction to something that's not transient, not full of distress. But again, this is a really important point. The stress in and of itself is not bad when it's directed at the right thing. So let's hear some thoughts about that. Let's just pause for a moment, see any ideas, any thoughts, disagreements? Yeah, go ahead. I see Adi Purusha, your hand is, oh, thank you for that wonderful kirtan too. It was very grounding and centering. I really appreciated it.
Srila Prabhupada says, beauty is in the eyes of the beholder. I'm glad you're joining in the kirtan. So, as far as we can understand, Srila Prabhupada has explained to us that there's a spectrum of motivation. At one end of the spectrum, there's the selfishness. I want this person to give this to me, to do this for me, to treat me like this. I want it, and if I don't get it, I'm unhappy. It's a, it's a frustration and it's an unhappiness, but it's based on some selfish motivation. But as far as I can understand, the devotees, what their motivation is, they are looking to please Krishna. So they want to be near Krishna so they can serve him. And their realization and the consolation that Uddhava gives is that actually it's possible in any capacity to be engaged in devotional service and to be satisfied. And even this longing to please Krishna is a form of devotional service. And even though it seems painful, it's very sweet because it's based on love. It's not some selfish. I'm not sure how clear that was, but that's what I was praying to Srila Prabhupada what to say, and that's what he gave me.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, that wanting it for myself. And I think that's a really important point because we have to acknowledge that first. You know, one of my favorite quotes by Prabhupada is first be conscious, then be Krishna conscious. If I'm not aware of that selfishness, and that word's very loaded. You know, that word is very loaded. When we want something, um, the desire for it, there's some needs or some values that, you know, just thinking about the needs and the values that are intrinsic to all of us. The wanting something is not, there's nothing wrong with that. We call it selfishness, but if we have to go through that first to first want something, want things, need things. And, you know, it's like a child, you know, when they're two, they want things differently. When we're older, we have a different experience. Oh, it's not all just about me. So there's a sort of a psychological, emotional, spiritual maturity that comes, but we have to go through that. I have to be aware that, oh, I want this, and look at how I feel when I don't get it. And that's where the consciousness starts to come in first, but it's very practical first. Um, and we can't say that these needs, these desires, this wanting to be whatever it is that we want from someone else, they are part of us. It's just a matter of purifying them and then realizing, oh, it's not just about me. And then one thing that you said, and I see a couple hands up, but one thing you said is when we don't get what we want, we get upset. And in nonviolent communication, that's the difference between a request and a demand. When I need something from you, or I value something, or I want something, or I want things to be in a certain way, you can tell the difference between a request and a demand by how you behave, or how you experience being told no. If I get upset and angry and frustrated and now I'm mad at you and now we can't be friends, that really wasn't a request. A request leaves space for no. Otherwise, it's a demand. And so that brings us our own suffering when we're just demanding of the world, demanding of people, having expectations that are not appropriate. And so I just wanted to share that because I don't want to, I wouldn't want it to come across like our needs are bad. We just need to refine and purify a little bit. Anyway, I feel like a 2-year-old most of the time, so I'm working on this. Okay, Damodar Priya and then Jamuna Jaya.
I'll give it up to Jamuna Jai because I know she usually has class at 8. I don't know if it's the same in Costa Rica, but
Okay. Yeah, Jamuna Jaya, when you turned on your camera and smiled, I felt like the world was like, oh, okay, everything is
It's so
okay.
good to see you. Yes. Yeah, I have class at the same time, only an hour different right now. So thank you, Damodar, for always remembering. I've got to dash off. But thank you for class. There was something in the last 2 comments that just really made me think something that Guru Dev always says. He says the worst thing in life is to have the wrong goal. Because if we're reaching for, and as we make resolutions and all those things, if we have the wrong, that's putting in the wrong address in your GPS. You're going to line up in the wrong place. So I was really like, that your class and the comments made really reminded me. It's like, yeah, you got to have the right goal. And I love your point about learning to look. Oftentimes in my asana classes, I tell the students, even if they can't get the pose, at least they've learned how to work on getting the pose. And it's that same thing. If we keep, it's in the endeavor, it's in the striving. If I know how to look, if I know to look to see Krishna everywhere, as you were saying, that's the payoff. So loving your class so much. And thank you for bringing in this last day of 2023 with us. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna and happy belated birthday.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Well said. You really said that really beautifully, much more eloquently than I could have hoped for. And yeah, it reminded me of something Adipurusha just said, but it escaped me. So I'll leave it to Damodar Priya.
Hare Krishna.
It
Good
didn't
morning,
escape you.
sister.
Krishna took it from you.
Krishna
All
took
about
it.
Krishna.
Yeah, that's true. Give it back.
Forgetfulness and all remembrance, and sometimes he's like, it's okay. And it's always easier for us to like distill what you've already been speaking for a while because we're like not having to present class. We could take notes or just so don't worry. You're doing great. But I just wanted to first off, one of the points that I wanted to reinforce you already did, which I love, is the idea of us being compassionate with ourselves and others by understanding that we may be in different stages of development. So just like, you gave the example of a child, right? That children, when they're really young, they're not bad because they're selfish. That's just where their development is. Their understanding of the world. There's actually like even a psychological stage where children cannot psychologically, they're unable to understand that what they see is not what other people see. Like, and they've made studies where they would like put the child in a room and they're looking at something, and then they ask them to describe to the parent who can't see the thing, describe what you're seeing, and they can't understand why you would ask them to do that because they're like, obviously they can see what I can see. They're like, it's literally like psychologically, like they're unable to do that. So if we can, as you said, extrapolate in the spiritual sense that we're all like kind of babies in Bhakti, and we're, some of us are obviously more advanced than others, but like I'm a baby in Bhakti. So like to understand that and to have compassion for myself and to maybe have compassion for someone else and know that this is just a stage that we have to go through and we get it. Like, I just love that. So thank you for making that point. And then the one that I really found powerful was when you said, that we have an internal, intimate life with Krishna that is eternal and fulfilling. Wow. Like, if I could go through the day with that understanding that you just laid down, like mic drop, like how different would my bhakti, how different would my sadhana be, right? So yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, those were my big things. But I actually did have a question. When you said, will we be frustrated about finding Krishna, or can we just be enthusiastic about the journey to Krishna? What are some practical steps that we can do every day to be enthusiastic about the journey instead of getting stuck in like the frustration?
Oh, thank you. That's a good one. Well, I can only tell you what helps me, and I think it's different for everyone. But the thing that I found, especially this year, is to read the Bhagavad Gita with at least one other person, someone who is just game to get excited and curious and exploring what's in there. That for me has been the most powerful, and Bhagavatam too. So reading with either one or two other people, or three, maybe a small group, so that you can really get into it. And then that for me brings me the most enthusiasm, because I'm thinking about it during the day. And even if you do it once a week, whatever we just read, I'm kind of processing, kind of like, it's in my mind, and then I'll have realizations, and that I haven't found anything as powerful as that. So these groups where we come together to really read, and it doesn't have to be very time consuming, but that has been the most powerful way of remembering, or kind of sort of directing the boat. And I just remember what Adi Purusha said. It was about the sort of the endeavor, the practice, that is the goal. If we can practice, serving, trying to give devotional service, that may be it too. Like, what can I do for this person, for my child, for my partner, for my friend, for the temple, for any of the devotees? What can I do? And that brings enthusiasm in and of itself. But reading these words, just, and we may not notice it at the moment. I don't notice it until a week later. I'm like, oh, I really realized that. Like, this is now a part of me. So, but thank you for that comment about the children. Yeah, just beautifully put it into perspective, because there is a spiritual parallel to that when we're trying to understand. And I don't know that there are, all the Vaishnavas are merciful and compassionate, but the greatest example, or one of the greatest examples, is Prabhupada's patience with the sort of like the terrible twos, the spiritual terrible twos that the devotees were going through, because they were very young, age-wise, but also spiritually they were just learning. And so imagine that compassion, that patience that he had for them. Yeah, so thank you. I love that. Cool. We have our education specialist here. Thank you, Damodar Priya. Bhima Prabhu, Hare Krishna. Happy New Year.
Hare Krishna Prabhujini. So nice to hear from you. It's always reassuring. One does not have to go any further than to listen to one of your classes to be assured that Vaishnavis are the future of our movement, and that we can take great solace to understand that both sides of this movement of Prabhus and Prabhujinis and are well represented in Prabhupada's mission. I just wanted to say that Damodar Priya saying I'm just a baby in Bhakti, and the thought that came up in my head was, can you imagine if we weren't babies in Bhakti? It's precisely what Prabhupada said we needed to be at all times, which is completely dependent and crying out for Krishna to give us shelter, to give us nurture, to teach us the way, to hold our hand, to help us walk, to instruct us at all times. It is precisely when we don't think we're a baby in bhakti that we're going to stumble or think we know it all, and end up in real trouble. I also wanted to say that, a lot of the times there are questions: how do we advance as a baby? How do we walk? How do we toddle confidently forward in Krishna consciousness? And for myself, not being so intellectual, academic, I'll read a paragraph and I start to nod, just like a baby. That
That's what the pictures are for in the books.
Yes. Alice
For
said,
you.
what is the use of a book without pictures or conversation? And Prabhupada has made sure that he gave us, as it is, Krishna's conversation, and he employed the devotees, wonderful artist devotees. Think about it, how wonderful it is that we have artists in the movement, that when we chant our rounds, we can resort to looking at these representations, these pictures of Krishna, which are, if painted with love and devotion, actually Krishna himself. Such a great service they have done for all of us, the pictures in the books. But that as it may, Adi Purush has me working on a sign that, for his kitchen / bookstore, faith in action. And I would say that for myself, not, as I said, not being an academic or someone who, can read at long periods of time without getting restless or sleepy, that if we have a mission, if we have some kind of service that we've adopted, and especially a service that requires risk, as we were talking about yesterday, that is putting something at risk, our time, our money, our commitment, a promise. We set that risk, as Prabhupada took the risk on the Yaladuta coming over to America. That was a huge risk at his age. If we do that, then we are assured, Krishna promises us that he will enlighten us from within. And that if we ever have any question, if we're confused or doubtful, we can just find some little service. I remember when I first started back again in Krishna consciousness, I just said, you know what, I'm going to make garlands. When I show up to the temple, I'm just going to take on, one of the garlands. And by sitting still amongst the other garland makers and seeing the meticulous process, the stillness and the care and the beauty of taking something beautiful, making something beautiful, and putting it around the neck of someone beautiful, that would be the essential revelation that I needed to assuage all my doubts in Krishna consciousness. So thank you very much for this class, Lila. I'm sorry for rambling on there, but I just really wanted to express my appreciation for the Vaishnavis, who sort of have an intuitive understanding that a lot of us Prabhujis miss. Hare Krishna.
Oh, Hare Krishna, Bhima Prabhu. Thank you so much. I really appreciated all of that. Excellent points. I love the risk thing, and everyone finding their own service, but there was no matter what we're doing, and we think of Krishna, he says this over and over and over in the Bhagavad Gita, just think of me. No matter what you're doing, just think of him, and that changes everything. And then we start to see, oh, well, I can think about him when I'm doing this, offering this to him, and it starts to become refined there. But something you said about, let me see. My mind's had enough. It's like, oh, it's a whole year of thinking. Stop that.
Lila, Devi, can I offer an analogy?
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, you were talking about the remembrance of Krishna while doing the things that we need to do in life. I was listening to His Holiness Sanchidananda Swami's New Year's address. It's It's a brief 5-minute address, and he was sharing how he asked somebody in Vrindavan, someone very advanced, he asked them in Vrindavan, how do I, how does one keep, how does one remain urgent about his Krishna consciousness? How do we keep the goal in mind always, that the goal is Krishna? How do we concentrate on the goal at all times? And the answer was prayojana. Prayojana means the goal. And then Maharaj was describing how in Vrindavan, when the village girls, village women go to get water, they carry the pot on their head when they go back, and they have to balance. So they carry the pot on the head. All the while, they're exchanging glances, exchanging jokes, holding hands, poking at each other, all the while carrying the pot on their head, full of water, almost like effortlessly. And Maharaj was drawing the parallel between the pot and remembrance of Krishna. Mm-hmm. So we may have to do this thing or that thing, but then the pot has to be there on the head. We have to keep carrying the pot. The path may be wiggling, and it may not be very smooth, and there may be distractions on the left and on the right, but we have to carry the pot. We need to meditate on those village women, simple village women who are balancing the pot. So balancing the pot is a wonderful one-liner that we can keep in mind while thinking of the goal, which is always Krishna. We may take a break, take a pause, and who am I doing this? Who am I filling? This is a form that I need to fill out. Who am I doing it for? This is the email I need to answer. Who am I trying to please here? Mm-hmm. Take a break, Maharaj says, take a break. Reflect on who you're trying to please. And this will be like your pot that you're balancing all the time. And then also he said, read every day. It didn't say once a week, Lila Devi. This is a correction here. Not once a week, every day. Reading has to be there. Nothing comes close to reading Srila Prabhupada's books. We can immediately feel the ease and the transcendental breeze, coming from the pages as soon as we turn to them. Hare Krishna. I'm sorry, I'm rambling on.
Wow, thank you. I love this analogy so much. Oh, I'm gonna remember that forever. Thank you. Yeah, very nice. Very well said. I really appreciate that one. It's so true. I can't think of a better one. Well, I meant groups, reading groups. Sometimes people can only meet once a week.
Right.
Yeah, we're like coming together at the very least. But I have I've done that, right? When you read, you go through like just the text of one chapter without the purports, one chapter a day, and it's so powerful. I mean, and then just keep starting over and over again. But I want to go back to what Bhima was saying, because and what Radharani's experiencing here, and this sort of the stress of realizing he's not here. And that is the highest emotion, to feel that she's not having the highest expression of emotion. Of course, when they're together, they are, but also the highest emotion, the highest place to be in is that love and separation. And so, again, we're not pure devotees. We're not comparing ourselves to Radharani, but there is a parallel there where, when we realize, oh, he's not here, this is what I'm missing. Have we arrived? Is that part of the realization of Krishna? Or, oh, he's here in all of his energies. Or, oh, he's not here, I'm suffering. What else is there? And then the engagement, right? Someone said something about actions. Oh, faith in action. Oh, I love that. That's so beautiful. Because from those realizations, then we act, right? Our actions come from our consciousness. And if my consciousness is, oh, Krishna's here, then I do things in a certain way. I do certain things. There's a behavioral component to that. And if I realize, oh, he's not here, I really need him, there's also a behavioral component to that. And there's an action that comes from that consciousness. And then we may go looking for him. And so everything lies in the consciousness. Everything is there. our actions are all expressions of our consciousness. And so this realization, and this is why he says over and over, just think of me, offer me your buddhi, just all of it. And then is it, how close are we getting when we just think of him? What else is there? And like that verse that says by thinking of the lotus-eyed one, you just become purified. Just your mind touching Krishna, the mind becomes purified. That's all we need to do in that moment. And the thing is that we need to keep doing it over and over and over again in every moment. It's not like, oh, I thought about him today, I'm pure now. It doesn't work like that. It's just a constant. And that's why it's the practice. That's why what Adi Purusha was saying, that's it. Just keep doing it over and over. And we keep doing it together. That'll be, it'll be a glorious year. Jai Shri Shri Radhamuli Dar Gaurachandra.
And as far as our material possessions go, we're going to lose them anyways. So don't worry about that.
They're going up in dust.
You pressed it again.
Jai Shri Shri Radhamuli Dar Shri Gaurachandra Ki Jai Shri Lila Didi Ki Jai Remembering Krishna Ki Jai Reading Srila Prabhupada's books Ki Jai Taking Prasadam Ki Jai, all those wonderful practices that we can take to on a daily basis. Ki Jai. Thank you very much, dear devotees. Krishna will be testing us not just with pain, Sometimes he'll test us with some success, like he's testing Bhima Prabhu, with success and right. So Do not abandon Krishna when things are good, and do not give up on Krishna when things are difficult.
Because my success is so closely related to you, Ananda Bihari, I'm always aware of I'm always aware of the pain and suffering.
Yeah, I'm always there for you. Yeah.
Jai.
Yes, you are.
Dear devotees, Happy New Year. It's a new beginning. Start fresh. Don't give up on yourself. Krishna can see what we cannot see, and Krishna knows what he's doing. And like Lila Devi said, we're all babies in Bhakti. And the baby has 100% faith that the adult is there to protect them and to care for them. And they do this trust falls. They put their guards down, fully trusting that Krishna will be there to pick us up when we fall. And yeah, full faith in Krishna is the key quality that the babies in Bhakti have. So let's all concentrate on becoming babies, baby-like.
Jai. Thank you so much. Yeah, here's to balancing those pots in the new year, right?
Yeah, balance in the pot.
Balancing the pots. Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate being here with all of you. Happy New Year to all of you. May you be blessed in Krishna consciousness and in all your endeavors. And yeah, let's come together soon. I love this. Who brought up, I think it was Bhima who said about being dependent. I love that. And that was the connection with what he said of like, even to realize we're struggling or we're suffering without, our main desire. That's it. That's a good place to be. Is we're aware that we need something bigger than ourselves.
Yeah, when we realize how dependent we are on Krishna, then no one can tell us what to do, really, because we don't depend on them. We depend on Krishna. So we can chill and relax and focus on our service, on our association, on our practice. If we're truly surrendered, no one can force us. Right?
He's got it all under control. I mean,
yeah.
That takes the load off, right? Like I don't have to control anything. I don't have to manage the universe. That's somebody else's job. And then I can just, chill out and just do what I'm supposed to be doing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hare
Okay,
Krishna.
would anyone like to say something? It's New Year's Eve. We want to, at least one introverted devotee, please turn on your camera and say something. Please.
Somebody.
We're going to call out. Don't make us call out.
Even if they don't want to speak, we could always appreciate them. And,
okay,
and
at least say hi.
Appreciate all the introverted devotees who show up every day, even if they don't turn on their cameras, even if they don't speak, but they're there and they're supportive.
Yeah,
so thank you
nice.
so much. We love you.
Yeah, let's acknowledge the introverted devotees.
All glories to the introverted devotees.
Jai.
Jai.
Okay, Hare Krishna. Have a wonderful day, wonderful year. See you again tomorrow.